This is Entrepreneur Authorities, where we talk with the leaders, builders, and thinkers helping entrepreneurs make smarter decisions in a changing world. Whether you're building your brand, scaling your startup, or just getting started, get ready to be inspired, empowered, and equipped to take your next big leap. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and today I'm once again joined by Demos Parneros. Demos has spent his career at the center of retail transformation, leading teams through major shifts in technology, customer expectations, and the way businesses compete. And now as AI begins to reshape the industry, he brings a grounded perspective on what actually matters. Because for Demos, AI isn't about chasing the newest tool. It's about using technology to serve customers better, support associates more effectively, and create real human value. Today, we'll talk about what past waves of disruption can teach us, where AI creates new opportunities for retailers, where it introduces risk, and what will separate companies that adapt from the ones that fall behind. Demos, welcome back to the show. How are you, my friend?
Joe, great to see you. I'm doing great. Thanks.
It's great to see you. And, one of the reasons I want to do this episode 2 with you, Demos, is I'm seeing so many, how they say reading the tea leaves? I'm seeing so much in this world of AI and in companies and in growing companies and starting companies to the original e-com days of, those early 2000s of when everyone said, you got to have e-com. Everyone's got to be on e-com. Everyone's got to build a website and sell stuff. And we saw how that turned out and the role Amazon played in it. But you were there. You were there on the ground with Staples, going from your traditional brick and mortar, riding it through that early technology wave to where it is today. So let's start there.
Yeah.
What are you seeing today in 2026 that you're kind of seeing similar-ish to those early days in the 2000s of you got to do this or you're going to die? And we're having these same conversations with you got to have AI or your company's going to die. Let's start with that part of the conversation, Demos.
Well, I'm hearing that same thing. You've got to have it. In fact, it's interesting, Joe. I actually speak to a lot of companies, and some of them, in my mind, act like if I don't say I'm involved, I'm going to be left behind, I'm going to be judged, etc. So I think everyone's in the conversation. So that's first things first. And in terms of do you really have to have it? Well, let's go back to your question about e-com back in the day. I remember brick and mortar, lots of stores, first mover advantage. If you want to win, you have more stores, that whole thing. Then all of a sudden, e-commerce. And I remember actually being named president of Staples Stores back in 2002. And a Wall Street analyst said, oh man, bad timing for this guy, since there are going to be no more stores. Or there'll be no more new stores. And we opened, I think, another 700 stores on top of that. Countless companies have opened thousands of stores. And we know that today there are both stores and e-commerce. So I think the lesson learned for me is major transformative event, the formation of commerce, the beginning of commerce on a computer, later on mobile phone, which I think made it even easier.
Yeah.
But retail's still there. So, it's good for everyone because it's convenience for consumers. It's great for companies, gives them options, but there's not one or the other.
Is there something in what you learned, Demos? Because I'm trying to think, because the way you describe it is like, yeah, you were brick and mortar and you introduced the e-com, but you were still brick and mortar. And there is almost a vibe of throwing the baby out with the bathwater now of like, you've got to be all in this thing or you don't survive. But clearly you showed that like, yeah, we're brick and mortar, but we can also do e-com too. So tell me about those early waves of people, it's not like Staples just ceased existing as a brick and mortar. It just, and you said you added hundreds of more stores when people said you weren't. What are you seeing in terms of like, the all-in aspect of it? Like, and this could be AI washing where you're hearing companies lay off people and then realizing that they need people, right? And they're like, oh, no, our bad. Come on back. So what do you think about this idea of just sort of like, you can't go all in so fast because there are going to be these growing pains along the way? Like compared to that a little bit, like the fact that you were able to ride that storm and now people are doing the same thing.
Yeah, we rode that storm. And I think there have been other events, like, for example, mobile commerce. I mean, people said, well, everyone will just shop on their phone. I shop on my phone, but I also, I'm shopping for a car right now. It's a lot easier to see it on a big computer. I kind of like going to the showroom. It's a little bit old school, but I want to sit in the car and so forth. So I think there's a need for both. So With respect to AI, it's interesting. I spoke to someone recently who's a managing director for an accelerator. They work with hundreds of companies. They've invested in so many different companies, and they go to a lot of these like industry conferences and meetings and so forth. And she said, at these meetings, if the whole agenda is not about AI, we're not going to get people to show up. So it's AI up and down. When we talk to the companies, not so fast. Some are saying, well, I got to get my product out. I've got the skincare product. I've got to get the right formula, the right sort of formulation. It's got to have the right texture. And yes, AI plays a role, but it's not an all-in, 100%. Now, conversely, I spoke to a guy who runs a software company, um, and they've created this product it's a healthcare company. And they really are, I would say, doubling down on AI. So I said, perfect. Tell me more. I said, answer 3 questions for me. One, are you personally using it, you yourself as the co-founder? 2, is the company better for it? In other words, like, do you have better product? Are you saving money? Did you eliminate people? I asked all the kind of the right questions. And then lastly, what do you expect from your people? And he said, well, it's not so clear. And I said, I was looking for a quick answer, like yes or no. And he said, no, it's not that simple. He said, yes, I use it a little bit. Actually, he first started telling me that he learned how to make, get the yeast right for making sourdough bread. I said, no, 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 I'm not talking about that stuff. I said, although I'd like to have that sourdough bread when you're done.
Sure, give me that recipe. Yeah.
Yeah, recipe and what you're supposed to do every day. But he really talked about his own personal productivity as it relates to being a co-founder. He then said, in their coding process, in their software development process, they haven't eliminated people. They've slowed down the hiring and they've taken parts of the process out. He's made himself a little bit more free in terms of his time utilization. And yes, they expect their new employees to use it. So I think all in is a lot. So, and one more example, if I could, I recently joined the board of a very large privately held company. They've got a lot more resources than the startups I typically work with. And, I go to the quarterly meetings. We have monthly meetings with many of the team members. And I'm asking them questions like, what can we do? This is a retail company. Is AI transforming the company? And they said, well, what do you mean by transforming? I said, I was asked sort of the leading kind of dumb question. Did you
Sure.
eliminate jobs? Are you twice as fast at something? And the answer is yes, there are benefits. We haven't eliminated jobs. Maybe here and there, they've reduced jobs, maybe consolidated a little bit. But again, it's not an all-in situation from what I'm seeing. The ones that I think are using it the most are some of the hardcore, bigger software companies. They seem to give away the work to different AI tools, and they're able to actually save on resources, speed up production, etc.
You mentioned you work with a lot of founders and co-founders in terms of, advice and investing. Is it one of these things where, like, if they don't even have that line, AI enabled or AI powered, they cease to exist? Tell me about this world, because I've often pushed back, Demos, that, and I'm not the first person to say this, but for many many years, our brightest minds of the planet were going to the best schools in the world to then come up with the next great dating app, and I was like, oh my god. The amount of brain power that's being used for the silliest things because they're gonna get richer that way. And again, I don't begrudge anyone being rich, but it is weird that we've created a culture where you get this incredible education, you're an incredibly intelligent person, and I came up with this new dating app. Like, it's so I'm wondering, like, the people you're starting with, is it just they're all involved with AI because that's what everyone else is doing? Like, tell me what's the mindset of these founders nowadays?
Yeah. I don't think it's everyone who has that mentality, but I do have one of my startup companies that I've invested in who recently changed their name and added AI at the end. And I said, come on, is that really going to do the trick? And the founder said, well, we get more cred that way. Um, I don't know. I think proof's in the pudding. I'm a little bit old school. I want to see results. And so I do think there's a little bit of pressure, call it peer pressure or industry pressure, for people to fit in and to use what is this biggest, I would say, most transformative kind of development that we've seen since you said, the development of the internet, doing commerce online, the cell phone, et cetera, all those things. And there's no question that people are seeing benefit. To me, the big question is, how are you using it for your business? And are you able to afford it? And can you get a return on it? Some of these small companies, frankly, don't have the resources. They are dabbling, but they can't turn their whole business over completely. So I see a mixed bag.
I love that you pointed out that one of the people you're working with was like, "Yeah, we're just gonna throw this AI thing for the cred." And you said, like, cred where, right? Like, is it
Hardware.
the consumer probably doesn't care. It may help with getting future investors, potentially for acquisitions and stuff. So let's talk about this disconnect of this world where you got to slap AI at the end of your name just because you're gonna get cred in this world where there's access to money, access to people,
Some
and then the
people, right?
consumer side of things. So, and we're recording this after there were a ton of commencements speeches where anytime one of these speakers who are not nobodies, like very successful people, even hinted to the two letters AI, they were getting booed by the students. So tell me about all this sort of like this gap of I'm getting cred for using AI with these folks, but the folks on the other side, they don't even want to hear anything about it. So how do we bridge that gap, Demos?
It's funny. The commencement. By the way, I gave a commencement speech once. It was pre AI being what it is today. So thank God I was not booed and people didn't walk out. Well, that's the first thing, Joe.
Good.
Uh, and I'm not sure why. I mean, a lot of people stayed too. So some walked and some stayed. The question is it good for us? It depends. I think it can be. I mean, if a company uses tools to become more efficient, make more money, and there's no benefit to their end consumer, I guess that's good for shareholders in some way. I'd like to see it be universally good. As a user personally, I've tried, being a student of business and also looking for ways to be more efficient and so forth. I've used multiple tools. I have people who are much more versed who are saying, try this, try this, try this. I feel like at some point I need to like cool it a little bit and just stick to what I do and focus on what I'm good at and use these as an assist. So I think, look, if you're a consumer company and the retailer is able to better understand your preferences, your price points that you shop, your color selection that you like, etc., how you shop, affinity shopping, and serve you up better offers that matter, I think that could be good. But if it's simply a productivity gain, not so fast. So I think I am an optimist. I think it is good. I think different companies will use it at different levels. Startups definitely different than the bigger companies I speak with. And I'm hopeful that there'll be a shakeout. And just like all these other developments over the years, it'll kind of find its place. And we won't be talking about it next year like it's a brand new thing. And are you using it? I mean, first of all, it's been around.
Yes.
Two, yes, there are more tools available today, and it's much more spoken about than ever before. But I remember the days where, way back, I'm dating myself here, but people would send an email out when email first started, and then they'd call you on the phone and say, "Joe, did you get that email I sent you?"
Right.
And I think people will stop saying, I have AI in my name as a company, or talk about it as the number one thing about their business, but instead talk about their business. Like, why are they there? Why do they exist in the first place? They didn't form the company because AI exists. They formed the company to create a better service or some, some healthcare solution or some amazing food product or whatever it is.
That's great. And there's this phrase AI enabled, right? And so out of curiosity, maybe it's folks you've worked with or companies you're invested with, like what is it that AI enable experience doing that you couldn't do before? Because obviously, you cut your teeth a lot of it from the transition from brick and mortar to e-com, but for years, e-com platforms have been able to say, "Hey, you like this? Would you like to try this?" And I know that is a rudimentary version of AI, and Amazon's been doing it for decades. So I get that. So maybe that will improve, like you mentioned, like you'll know sizing and coloring and stuff like that. Where are you seeing it now that it will help the experience that we did not have before? Or is it just, or we're just probably going to see a better version of of that, the example I just gave you?
Well, I mean, I think it's a good example. First of all, I mean, in my old book business days, the quote was, "If you like this author, you will like that author. Or if
Right.
you like to read this genre, you may like that." Um, yeah, I mean, and I would think that AI tools with millions of piece of information available to them, bits of information available to them, are able to sort through a lot more than the person on the floor who can only read, a book a week or whatever it is, and they may not read the books that Joe likes or Demos likes. So
Right.
I do see the benefits of that.
That's great. You called yourself old school, and so I'm not putting words. I'm not putting words. You're an old school, like retail guy who has grasping the technology age clearly. Um, but so I want to. I'd love to get your take on this. So an old school entrepreneur, if they run a company and they walk into their office, they want to see everybody busy, right? They want to see heads down, keys being
Productivity.
hit, guys running around. They want to see busyness, right? We all know that AI is going to make most people's jobs, I'm talking white collar, easier. How
Sure.
is an old school entrepreneur going to grapple with the idea of when they walk into their office or they check into someone, the person at their desk aren't sweating, or they're just they're casually sipping a drink. This is the one question that no one's answered, because we've all heard that, the job reduction the job reduction debate's been going on. We know that, but the people that are actually still working, maybe they're not going to have to work as hard. How is an old school entrepreneur like Demos? How are you going to handle that when you walk into an office and it's like, no one's nervous here. Everyone seems very chill and relaxed. Tell me how old school entrepreneurs will adjust to this new way of business.
Listen, old school, new school. I definitely don't want to be having my workforce sweating it out, being nervous. I want them to be happy and
Okay.
happier people, more productive people. But I think it's an interesting question. I think the companies I've worked with who are, there's one, for example, that comes to mind. It's a small US manufacturer, and they really haven't changed that much over the years. Their product works. Yes, there is a little bit of usage with newer technology, faster processing of information. Their accounts payable function much faster. So they're getting benefits, but their core manufacturing, they make this product, is still exactly the same. So I think maybe it becomes a little easier, maybe it becomes a little faster, maybe as costs in business increase, they can absorb some of those. So I think everybody will settle in. I think just like in the past, companies figured out how much am I going to do in retail versus e-commerce, how much of my workforce do I need to be in the office doing certain tasks, which tasks can I give away or delegate, reduce, eliminate, how do I save, and basically continue to change, continue to evolve. And evolve doesn't mean break down to nothing and start over. It means I have a business, I have my core, and I will evolve and iterate and continue to grow and learn. And that's what I see. I think people are they're energized, they're excited. Some are a little nervous too. I don't hear in my circles mass, eliminations of roles. I've heard of a few though. We saved a role here, we've consolidated positions there, and I think as time goes on and really um, people get comfortable, they'll settle into an operating model that works.
And as we look ahead, if AI becomes widely adopted across all retail, which it seems like it already has, what do you think's gonna separate the winners from everybody else? Because if you think about it, the playing field is pretty level. Like, unless you are building an LLM, which that's where the cost comes in. If
Yeah.
you're just signing up for a platform or paying for a service, everyone's gonna have access to it. Everyone's gonna be able to use the same tools. So what's the differentiator? Like, who will win if everyone has the ability to do the same thing on the technology side? Obviously, I'm not talking about the actual product, but like, what do you think differentiates the winners and losers in the world of AI and retail?
Yeah, I think that's the right question. I think everyone will have access. Certainly companies with more resources can jump on faster, they can spend more money. That's no different than having a better and faster supply chain in the past,
Sure.
or
Or a marketing budget or something. Yeah.
spending more on the marketing budget.
Yeah.
Exactly, like you said. I think it's going to wind up talent, clear understanding of the customer. I think customer obsession, really understanding how customers change and changing to meet those customer demands. That's what it is. If you can use AI to help you get there, great. If you have a product that is, in high demand and you are continuing to evolve, I mean, the one thing that I'll say about my retail experience, and there's a lot more years before me, is that it's constant change. It is constant change. I mean, we've gone from like a big book catalog to today being able to shop anywhere with any type of tool, whether it be a computer or go to a store or a phone. We can go pick things up. We can have stuff delivered to our car. I love that you can pick, open the trunk and put it in there, or the left door, or whatever the case might be. It will continue to change. So I think AI is a phenomenal tool for retail. I actually wish, Joe, that I was running a retail company today to have some of these tools just to speed things along, whether it be evaluate our 2,000 store fleet of stores and get me certain information. Look, we were able to do it back then, but you can do it a lot faster today. I mean, you can do it in minutes versus, days or weeks, and save money. Saving money is good for a business. There's so many other expenses. I think the biggest is understanding the consumer preferences and how they shop, when they shop, what else they shop with. That's just gold. I mean, I think for retailers today, these are incredible tools. My advice would be use the tools, share the wealth with your customers, make the experience so much better, and everybody wins.
That's great. Good stuff. And so, I've often been one of those people that like when people say AI is a tool. I'm like, I don't know if it's a tool. I think it's bigger than a tool. And I get why they say that. And obviously use the example of it. But I'm trying to think about the relationship between AI and retail, where do you think the use of AI and the idea of like incorporating it for the sake of incorporating it, like we've discussed it, do you think it's overblown? Because at the end of the day, like, for example, Walmart, if Walmart decided to not spend a penny on AI, outside of like, God forbid, Wall Street having a heart attack because Walmart didn't didn't invest in AI. Outside of that, do you think it makes a difference? Like, if you are a great company, will it matter? Because to me, it's hard to compare that to e-com because, like, if Walmart decided not to have a website or online shopping, that to me would be just psychotic. But if Walmart decided not to use AI or invest billions in AI, would it matter? So, is it overblown, this relationship between AI and retail? Because, like you mentioned, if you've got the product and if you got people that are fans of something and they're going to use it, does it matter that it's AI enabled? Like, is it overblown?
I think it matters. I don't think it's overblown, Joe. I
Okay.
think at times it can be overblown, but I think for a company, I mean, you picked your example, the biggest company in the
I
world.
know, I know. I cheated. I know.
They're teetering between them, the two biggest ones, Amazon
Yeah.
and Walmart. But I think for them, they have so much information. You just can't put enough people behind that. So I think for companies at that level, at that scale, yes. If you're talking about a local small business that's that trades on relationships and high quality and high touch service, maybe it's a little overblown. But I think for the most part, it's a phenomenal, tremendous development that both consumer retail companies and others, healthcare, especially among others, should be absolutely adopting and embracing.
You joke that you were a CEO of a retail company now to dabble in AI. Without giving away too much of your secrets, what do you think would be the first thing you would do? After learning and investing in companies that are using AI, what's something that you would initially be like, oh, okay, now that I know how this is working behind the scenes as a CEO of blank company, I'm going to do this with AI. Has anything come to mind?
Oh man, it's like having the answers to the test. If you know exactly think about a retailer that I mean, pick Walmart. Everybody loves Walmart. We all shop Walmart, Target. They're all great stores, national big companies. They do a great job, but they can't predict everything. They don't know exactly when customers come in, how much they'll buy, how much stock to have. I mean, they're pretty good. These are the best in the world. But to have extra layers of information, to have this customer obsession, to know that I can get Joe to be the happiest customer ever when they shop my store, whether they come into the store or they go online or they shop on their phone, however you shop, That's a huge benefit. And I think it is the competitive edge that you need today because let's face it, I mean, everyone competes against Amazon. Everybody competes against Walmart. There's a lot in between. I think you need that edge.
All right. So once you get the edge, do you think at that point it becomes how to use it right? Because as we said, slapping it on is not going to do anything. Again, it may help with investors and at your company barbecue. Tell me how you control that edge to your favor that it actually has repercussions that will be positive.
Better information, more efficient, better cost control, better expense management, smarter investing, better use of marketing data, better use of marketing tools, design features for the product. I mean, if you're a car manufacturer and I mean, I don't get a phone call from my car company asking me, what do you think? I mean, they have a lot of data, of course, but I think it's just like a real conversation, like a real-time conversation with your customer, and just the ability to respond quickly and to make the right moves. Listen, everyone's got precious resources, so I think spend every chip correctly or as best as you can. I think is a huge difference over what we've had over the years before, where you do the best you can, you use the information that's available to you, but now you just have like infinite information. The key is we've always had a lot of information, Joe. But I remember in one company I started, it was my last big corporate job I had, and I said I'm looking for certain information, and the person who I was speaking to said, "We have tons and tons of data here." And I remember later that night thinking to myself, I know, but I just need it like organized and synthesized and digestible so that I can understand it and act on it quickly. And that's what we have today.
Oh, that's great. And lastly, I was just talking to my wife about this. We were in the middle of making a big purchase, and we were using like a bot to communicate with the company. And my wife said, "How would my dad deal with this?" Her dad was greatest generation. He passed away recently of like 80, 90 years old. But like, there, do you worry, especially with retail? Like, there is no age limit. Like, so if someone's going to buy something, they could be 20, 67. It doesn't matter. How do you think these companies, especially retail, thread this needle of not turning people away who would use it? And my wife does this all the time because any kind of new technology comes around, she's always like, "How would my dad deal with this? We can do it. This is our generation, so we're flexible enough." But how do you manage the power of AI without leaving your consumers behind?
She should go sit in some boardrooms and ask that question. That's a good question, Joe, because it's funny. We have an aging population, longer life expected. People are shopping, working longer, etc. And not everyone wants the latest, greatest, every little feature, 50 apps, etc. So I think it's important for companies to keep in mind the pace of change and have the tools, but have a fallback too. And don't leave people behind. I mean, the key, at least in my world, consumer retail, is meet the customer where they want. So if they want to shop a certain way, they're the boss. They're the one that makes the decision. They're the ultimate person that we need to satisfy. And if they want to shop, listen, over time, it becomes inefficient. Things have to change. But yeah, I would be careful of not abandoning customers who are highly valuable to my business. And I would just bring it along.
Wise words, Demos. Folks want to get a hold of you, pick your brain more about AI and retail. Where could they start, Demos?
Definitely jump on LinkedIn, go on the City Park website or the demosparneros.com website.
Excellent. Demos, looking forward to our next chat. See you then.
Take care, Joe.
And that'll do it for this episode. If you're an entrepreneur ready to grow your industry recognition as an author and Entrepreneur.com contributor, go to authorities.entrepreneur.com.